Today, we're going to talk all about language arts and specifically about how I teach reading and spelling in our homeschool. Welcome back to my series that is walking you through all of the subjects and how I teach them all here in our homeschool. Last week, I talked about how I teach history. Today, we're going to talk all about language arts. Language arts basically includes all of the subjects regarding the English language. So it includes reading, writing, grammar, spelling, vocabulary, all of those kind of things wrapped up into the main heading of language arts. And so today we're going to talk specifically about how I teach reading and spelling here in our homeschool. And then next week will be about writing and grammar. So make sure you subscribe if you're interested in hearing the rest of language arts. There are several curriculum options out there that include all of these things into one all-in-one curriculum, and those are fantastic. A couple of the most popular ones in that area are Master Books and The Good and the Beautiful. And we have used both of those in the past and they are both fantastic. I definitely would recommend either of those, but this year I'm doing things a little bit more eclectic style and piecing together different curriculums and different way of doing things for each of the main subjects within language arts, just because that is what seems to work better for our family. So first off, let's start out with reading. Reading for me is one of the big areas here where I am super intentional about not forcing my kids into doing it if they're not ready for it. Because the reality is kids learn to read on all different levels. They do not all learn to read in kindergarten at age 5. That is just not realistic. Kids' brains develop differently, and it's important for us to be in tune with where our kids are actually capable of learning and growing in things, and when they just need some time to work up to those kind of things. If you force something in one of these areas, you're kind of going to be like bucking against the waves, where it's going to be so much harder to teach your kids and for your kids to learn the information because they are just not developmentally ready for it. So I encourage you, especially if you're new to homeschooling, don't be so focused on making your kids line up with whatever the public school standards are in the very early years. It is much more important to focus on relationship building and learning through play and hands-on interaction and activity and just reading lots of books together. That is going to set the foundation for further education in a little bit more detail as they're ready for it. And so just be in tune with your kid and really let them help you dictate how soon you start a lot of these types of things. When your kids are exposed early on to the English language and how it works, their brains will then naturally kind of pick up a lot of the information. Now, this is not always the case. I do have one child that is dyslexic, and let me tell you, it was painful teaching him how to read. It was so hard. So in that particular case, I really had to be more intentional in working on a lot of the rules and just kind of how the English language works. So in that case, I would highly recommend a curriculum like All About Reading, because it really walks you through what those rules are and how the English language works together, which gives kids whose brains work just a little bit differently and how they process that information. It really helps kind of fit the pieces together. For us with reading, I personally have never really used a reading curriculum. It has been something that has either been tied into the language arts curriculum that we have used in the past, or we really just focus on, especially in the early years, learning the letters of the alphabet, learning the different sounds that each of the letters make, and then kind of a more phonics-based approach where we then look at very short words and just practice sounding them out and figuring out how those sounds blend together. And that is just a very natural approach to reading. Once my kids have started putting words together and being able to read very basic words, we'll do things like sight word flashcards, or we'll read easy books like Bob books, where the kids can sound out the words very easily and put the things together. And we will read books together where then I will point to each word as I read them so that they can visually see what the word looks like as I speak it. And those kind of things really just kind of help put those things together for them. That's kind of been, in a nutshell, how I have taught how to read in the early years. Now, once my kids have learned to read, part of their schoolwork, their independent work has been that they are required to read 30 minutes per day. Normally, these are books that they get to choose on their own. I will approve it or deny it if they choose something, or I will often help them find something that I think they might like. Sometimes there are books that go along with maybe our history curriculum or something like that that I assign to them. But for the most part, the books that they choose to read are ones that they have chosen themselves. I really feel like by allowing our kids to choose their own books, they're going to be a whole lot more interested and engaged in reading and want to read more, and oftentimes more than that 30 minutes that we require them to read each day. Once our kids finish a book, we have them do a book report, and that is again just based on their age level and their ability and how much they're able to write about a particular book. And then when they turn that in, then they are allowed to stay up 15 to 20 minutes late that night, kind of as a reward for finishing a book and turning in the assignment. I really want reading to become a habit and just kind of a part of life, because people who are more successful in their life later on are people that are avid readers, and I want our kids to be successful. So I want them to, while they're young, to learn to enjoy reading and really have fun doing that, so that that will be something that is established in their life that will continue on later on down the road. Okay, so let's move on to spelling. As with every subject, I feel again like spelling is one where you have to work with your kids at the level they're at, not necessarily what schools may be. So sometimes that means our kids need to start at a lower level because they're just not ready for what schools are doing in that particular age. And sometimes that means our kids are much more advanced and we can work with them at the level that they are capable of working at, regardless of the grade that they're actually in. So I do spelling in two different ways in our homeschool because, again, I have one child that is dyslexic and then my other two boys are not, and they're quite advanced with their language skills. So we do things a little bit differently for them. For my kid that is dyslexic, we use the curriculum all about spelling. We found this last year and it has been so beneficial for him in learning how to spell, because his brain really just needed to learn what those spelling rules are, so that when he is then sounding out words or trying to figure out what the words are, he can remember what those rules are to help him know when the letter C says k versus s or whatever it may be. So I really have found all about spelling to be hugely beneficial for him particularly. And so what I do is I have this tote that has all of his all about spelling things in it. And I'll show you what we've got here. He is working on right now level 2. So I keep my teacher's guide in here. And then it comes with all of these letter tiles that you put on a board and have them spell out words here on the board, or you spell them out and then they sound them out and that kind of thing. This one is a magnetic whiteboard that's blank on one side, and then it has the lines on it for them to write on the other side. And this has been fantastic for us. So I can put the letters or the words here on the board and they'll stick on here, and then he can manipulate them how he needs to on the board. And then we also have him write out his words or sentences or phrases here on the board so he can practice having them be in uniform size with nice penmanship. Then I also keep all of the word cards here in a bag that go along with it, and the different spelling rules cards. And then I just have one of these little cheap little folder things where I have the sound cards and the key cards and the word cards that they're working on, and it has categories for ones that you're reviewing, ones that you've mastered, and ones that you have not yet learned. So I keep those in there so we can grab this out really easily and flip through and practice the cards that he's working on. And then I just keep a dry erase marker in here for him to write his things out. Each lesson will teach you a new concept that you work through with your child, and then it gives you about 10 words that you will work through to practice spelling that kind of reiterate that new concept. And then it also will give you phrases to dictate to your child, and then some sentences as well, so they can really practice using those words in action in a phrase or a sentence. When we're just going through the flashcards, I have him just spell them out loud, and then when we get to the phrases and the sentences, I have him right here so we can again reiterate correct capitals and punctuation and spelling and all of that kind of stuff as he's writing it out. And so that has really worked tremendously for him. I've seen him progress so much by using this curriculum. All About Spelling is one of the ones where they suggest no matter what grade level you're at, you start at the first one because it really builds the foundation for learning all these spelling rules that then it builds on in future levels. So my son, even though he was in a higher grade level than level 1 when we started that last year. We started at level 1 and we're almost through level 2. So then we will continue moving up to the next level as soon as he's ready for it. And I make sure again to just kind of pause and we hang out. If there's a particular lesson that he's struggling with, that lesson might take us longer than a few days. And sometimes he breezes through them and we move on and we just keep plugging away at his pace. My other 2 boys have never really had to learn the spelling rules. They, just being avid readers, they have naturally picked up how the words just go together. It just clicks, it just makes sense to them. So we haven't had to really drill into all the different rules and how those work for different words. So what I do, instead of having a curriculum, we are using the McGuffey's Eclectic spelling book this year, and this has been fantastic. So over the years for them, we have generally just had like a spelling list that we work off of. And so basically this is what's providing this list for me. My 2 boys, even though they're different grade levels, we're using this book for both of them because it goes from very basic words to a very, very in-depth words up to like 6 or 7 syllables. And so this is something that could go for all age levels you can work out of this book for. I just keep these little post-it tabs so I can quickly flip to whatever page we're working on for each kid. What I do basically is open the book to where we're at. I just go down the list and call out the word and have them spell it out loud. If they get it correct, we move on. If they don't get it correct, then I mark it with a little dash mark so I know which ones we need to work at, and I will keep going through the list until they get 5 words that they have missed. And then what I do is write each of these words up on a whiteboard that's in our kitchen, and then I will have them copy down each of those words 3 times in a notebook. And we just use a basic notebook for this, so they will open up to wherever the last one is and write down their words. And then this also works as our vocabulary list because this was originally written back in 1838. There are a lot of words in the English language that are used in here that are not commonly used today. And so as part of spelling /vocabulary, I will have them then look up in the dictionary at least one of the words in the 5 words that they have to copy down and write down the definition of that word in their notebook as well. And then the next time we do spelling, we will go back and I will call out those 5 words that they missed. And if they get it correct, then I will go through and put a check mark by the words so that I know that they spelled that correctly. And then we will keep going through it. If they don't get it correct again, I just leave it with that dash mark, and then we will go through new words until they get up to 5 again that they still haven't spelled correctly, and we just kind of repeat the same process. And then every few weeks or so, I will go back through and review the previous words that they had gotten wrong to make sure that they're still spelling those correctly. And then if they miss it again, that goes back up on the whiteboard, kind of as if it was a new word that they have to repeat in spelling. And so we just kind of keep going through that cycle all through the year, and that's how we do spelling for my other 2 kids. So for my 2 boys that are doing the McGuffey Speller, we do spelling twice a week for them because again, this is an area that they don't really struggle in. And so it's not something that I force them to work on every day. But for my other child who is dyslexic, we do spelling 4 days a week. And then he has dyslexia tutoring that he does online once a week as well. So he is getting some spelling component every single day during the school week because that is the area in school that he really needs the most help on. So that is something that we try to reinforce and make sure that he is getting the best foundation that he can have in this particular area. How about you? What do you like to use for reading and spelling? I'd love to hear what curriculum you use or just kind of how you teach that. Please drop that below. And again, if you want to hear about how we do writing and grammar, make sure you subscribe because that's going to be what next week's video is all about. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.